Very warm welcome to you all. Great to have you here. My name is Rachel. I'm the project manager for the World Crafts Council Europe, and we're hosting this webinar today. I see quite a few people are just coming in, so we just give it a minute. But just to give you a little bit of context, this is our 5th webinar in the new European Bauhaus series. They're all about the transformational potential of the crafts. This edition, we are looking at innovation and experimentation, and we're joined by some really exciting guest speakers who are going to dive into this topic from different angles and bring their own perspectives to the conversation. So let us know in the chat where you're joining us from, and feel free throughout the webinar to add any comments, discuss amongst yourselves, ask questions. We'd love to hear from you. It is, of course, a webinar format, so we can't see all of you, but we can try and keep it interactive via the chat. Okay, so let's just run over our agenda for today. Laura, if you can just go to the next slide. Okay, we're not seeing the next slide, but that's okay. I can just tell you about our agenda. So first up, we will have Nicky Dewar, who is the president of the World Crafts Council Europe. She'll give a short pre-recorded welcome and introduction. We'll then have a keynote speech from Ruxandra Lupu on responsible innovation. We're then going to have 3 case studies about different perspectives on innovation. There we go. Thank you for the agenda. First up, we'll have Ivana Borovnjak. Then we'll have Adele Orcajada, and then Kim Cordes. And then after that, we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A at the end. If we run out of time, if the speakers maybe speak a little bit longer, then we can also always answer the questions via email or link you up with the speakers. So please feel free to put those questions into the chat. Okay, just a quick few administrative matters. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be published online via our YouTube channel within the coming weeks. You can also find all of our previous webinars in the series on our YouTube channel. Then also at the end of the webinar, we'd appreciate if you can just fill out a very quick 30-second survey. This will pop up on your screen, and it's just to give some feedback about your experience. Okay, great to see people chiming in the chat. So for those who just joined, let us know where you're joining in from. But it's great to see so many people here. Thank you for joining us. So I'm now going to present our first speaker, which is the World Crafts Council Europe President, Nicky Dewar. Nicky unfortunately wasn't able to join us live today, but she's prepared a short introductory video. I'll just play that now for you. And if the sound is a little bit soft, please just turn up your volume.
Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased to welcome you to our 5th European Bauhaus webinar. Our event is part of the new European Bauhaus Festival, started last week and concludes on the 21st of April. Our speakers today bring new perspectives on the role of innovation, experimentation, and the transformational potential of crafts for society, environmentally, economically, and culturally. For us, this webinar is an important opportunity to convene and gather, to share new thinking, and explore where opportunities lie to raise awareness and celebrate the importance of craft professionals, and the role of making material knowledge in a wider context. Our wonderful membership spans across Europe, with members in 23 countries and growing. Whilst we have many cross-cutting and unifying points of connection, importantly, we have differences and unique needs that are specific to countries, regions, practices, and communities. This looks like heritage artisanal practice, where making methods have been passed down through the generations and specific to defined geographical locations. And it's contemporary makers whose skill and expertise combine traditional with new technology. Both utilise know-how to produce exquisite objects, telling stories, embodying beliefs and reactions, and producing artworks that mark a moment. This looks like makers' innovation, pushing and evolving materials, reinterpreting the possibility and our understanding of how objects can be made and what they can be made from. This looks like making and craft processes to tackle isolation or societal barriers, or mental health challenges, or any number of issues that we face living in our world today. And this looks like activity and engagement, whether it's empowering people to get hands-on for the first time as part of the experience economy, or thriving craft tourism, or about regenerating our urban spaces, craft driving new thinking about placemaking. By identifying, naming and celebrating this enormous breadth of expertise, and by presenting this world holistically, we are showing that craft and all the ways it has a role or impact are equally important. In doing so, we can not only protect craft across Europe, we can support it to flourish. Through our work, funded by the EU, we can highlight craft's role beyond the creative industries and its potential to make real change to priorities such as sustainability, economic growth and skills agendas. And it's this that's at the heart of our work. We play an important role in advocating for craft at policy level. Only last week, colleagues were in Brussels taking part in conversations about geographical indicators. Our report last year into the market for craft provides a long overdue understanding and assessment of volume and value of the market. Our latest report, Resilience of the Craft Sector in Europe, launched last month, evidences how the sector responds to challenges and opportunities such as economic instability, shifting consumer behaviours, global crises such as the pandemic, Brexit and the ongoing war in Ukraine. It will not be a surprise to us here that the report finds the resilience and creativity of Europe's craftspeople is due to their ability to adapt to changing situations. Both these reports highlight the need to increase support and engagement with the craft sector and provide crucial evidence that can support our lobbying. And our lobbying campaign is underpinned by direct delivery. Our Knowledge and Exchange residency programme has brought members and stakeholders together to explore existing practice and identify opportunities to development around key topics. The learning from these sessions not only informs members' own strategic direction, but provide crucial in our engagement in policy shaping conversations. From these short but intensive residencies, some key insights have surfaced. We can better articulate how to respond to shifts within the labour market by improving training position for the craft sector. How we can collaborate between countries, draw on academic and industry partners to build flexible and relevant pathways that are fit for the world we are living in today. We know how crucial craft is in storytelling and making sense of a world that is becoming increasingly polarised and divided. And through sensitive and challenging showcases, can new perspectives be considered? How can we involve these voices, ensuring that they're heard through exhibition and that no one is being left out? The fundamental right for all children to have the opportunity to make, so that it's part of their DNA throughout their lives. In doing so, we have a real prospect to tackle challenges such as sustainable development goals. And we don't just spend our time talking, we deliver an activity that is making direct impact on crafts professionals. Our digital training programme, delivered in partnership with Distribution Design Platform, introduced makers to new technologies, resulting in a mindset shift where innovation and digital engagement became more feasible as part of their practice. Content which is now freely available on our YouTube channel. Currently running is our online course on circularity and sustainability, delivered in partnership with Katie Tgeddon. It takes makers through a process to identify their unique contribution to environmentalism and supports them to cultivate a creative practice that nurtures them, their business and their planet. And we're really proud to be contributing to other partnerships activity. We're part of a project called Tracks for Crafts, an EU-funded Horizon project, where we're working to support 8 pilot case organisations across Europe that are using their knowledge and experience of traditional craft to explore new innovations. So, enough from me, and over to our experts. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nicky. Although Nicky isn't with us right now, thank you for that recording. And we really appreciate her joining us in that way. All right, let's get on to the program. Also to those who've joined a bit later, welcome. Great to have you here. So our first guest speaker today is Ruxandra Lupu. Ruxandra is a Marie Curie Fellow at the University of Cyprus. She's educated as a traditional printmaker and has a PhD from the University of Leeds. Previous to her work on this Marie Curie Fellowship, she was a researcher associated with institutions such as the University of Jean Monnet, Italian National Research Council, and Cardiff University. In these roles, she's worked, among others, on the development of new frameworks and methods for assessing the value of research, development and innovation practices, arts and craft skills, and research communication and innovation practice. Ruxandra has a deep interest in emerging innovation practices within crafts that are performed in an imaginative and responsible and fruitful manner to the benefit of artisans, the environment, and society. So Ruxandra will be giving our keynote talk and focusing today on the topic of responsible innovation. So Ruxandra, thank you for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rachel. A special thank you to you and to Anna and to World Craft Council for inviting me today to give this presentation. Just let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, looks perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I will also try to stop my video for now to avoid any interruptions in the connection. So yes, thank you very much for the warm welcome and for inviting me to give a keynote. Of course, the topic of responsible innovation is very broad and complex. So I try to do my best to cover in 20 minutes my own perspective on responsible innovation. So as Rachel mentioned, I'm speaking from different positions. I'm speaking from my position as a printmaker, so as an artisan, as I have been trained, but I'm also speaking with the hat of the researcher and creator that I've turned after my formal education. In this presentation about responsible innovation, what I would like to cover is like sort of very briefly to open up this idea of craft and the terminology surrounding crafts, because I think it's very important and it has important implications for the ways in which we look at innovation inside crafts. To speak briefly about how innovation happens, so what is behind, what's the process behind innovation and different forms of innovation, and then go deeply into the topic of innovation applied to the field of craftsmanship, and specifically with a focus on responsible innovation. And last but not least, I would like to expand on the topic of responsible innovation and to present you in brief lines a little bit a research-driven pathway to arrive at innovation in the field of craftsmanship through the example of my own project, the Marie Curie funded project that I'm currently implementing with the University of Cyprus. So without losing more time, let's start a bit with this idea of concepts and understandings of crafts. Of course, it's given already that the concept of craft is quite controversial and it's complex. In general, it is used to define a series of practices around making, but however, this broad area of activities that fall under the field of crafts can be quite different from each other. So we can have productive activities like gardening, cheesemaking, and so on, but we can have also creative activities like printmaking that I studied, like textiles, and further on. What is important in the complexity around the terminology that we use to define the field of crafts is also the country or cultural specificity of the terminology. This is the result of the social and cultural embeddedness of craft practices, which are actually localized practices, and can be further evidenced through the broad range of terms that are used in different countries, for example, to define a craftsperson. For example, in France, the use of the concept artisan. In Italy, to refer to a very skilled craftsperson, it's often used the word maestro. The word Handwerk in German, that relies to the work of the hand, and so on. So as we can see, the terminology is very broad, but what I would like to focus on is the specific field of creative crafts. That is also the topic of today. And of course, the area of creative crafts from epistemological point of view comes from the words art or techne, which is a combination of experience, skill, and handwork. So you have to have these specific qualities to fall into the creative activity defined as craft. What is important is the material dexterity that is fundamental in the field of creative crafts, and that knowledge that is embedded in the products resulting from the production process. So creative crafts are not singled out as an activity, but they are arising in a context given by techniques, so the way in which products are created, but also given by the fields of design, art, and industry, that are the levers that mediate how creative craft products go into the market, how they are designed, how they have an creative and artistic value, and so on. What is important to note is also the fact that crafts and creative crafts are not static concepts. They are like really concepts that have proven in time the resilience and the transformative character. So craft has evolved with the evolution of human history. So from very ancient times until through the industrial period and up till now. So this conceptualization and problematics create some conceptual challenges that are also important for the area of innovation. For example, the impossibility to fit all the nuances that we have of the understanding of the term of craft under one umbrella is, for example, the result of our attempt to fit the field of craft in a global, more universal context. So where it becomes more flexible, more available on demand, highly desirable and ready to use. In other words, it can become a commodity. So this poses the first challenge to how to address innovation in the field of crafts. The second aspect is the fact that even if creative craft is a skill-based practice, which means that the practice consists in the vision and the ability to set up and follow through a process, embodying layers of skills sedimented over one's life, the role of craft has been pushed somehow in the background with the advent of the industrialization period, where it has been stripped out of the productive labor, where mechanization has come to the foreground. So this is the second problematic. And the third problematic is the relationship between crafts and classification of crafts. We tend to see craft as a part of heritage and as a part of our past, but classifications of heritage need also to be flexible enough in order to comprise the evolution of these crafts, because a craft is not immobile and static in time. So why are these problematics important for the area of innovation? Because they pose challenges for ways in which we think about innovation in crafts. When we think about, for example, creative crafts as a part of our heritage, that can sometimes crash with ideas of innovation, because innovation is considered to be something new, and craft as heritage needs to be preserved as it is without being changed, and so on. So innovation is like practically everywhere. We live in a practically profoundly innovative world. And I put you here, like there are different ways of conceptualizing innovation, but two I found more interesting: the definition from IDEO, the company IDEO, and another definition by Piero Bassetti, Italian researchers. So what is important here is this aspect of creating and executing new ideas, with this aspect of creativity, but also that the fact that innovation is a way to combine power and knowledge in order to change history. As said, innovation is really broad as a concept, but it's also quite specific when it comes to different domains. For example, in terms of cultural innovation refers to a process that combines existing elements to create something new, appreciated in the creative and cultural sphere. So it's a very specific definition that applies to cultural forms of innovation, while technological innovation refers more to inventions of new things and way of doing things that are transformed, where we use technology and so on. So yeah, this broad definition of let's say umbrella of definitions of innovation has also the different specificities based on the domain that we apply them to. But how does innovation practically takes place? So I've put you here somehow on the right hand side a graph where I have developed in the past to see exactly how innovation happens. So innovation practically has different pathways. You can create innovation either through training, either through using new equipment or technology, using design methods or advertising, doing market research, or you can do research and development. But also combining different pathways can help lead to innovation. So innovation is not, these pathways to innovation are not like sort of recipe, but in each case, they combine differently in order to practically reach a result, and the result can fall into mainstream innovation, so more general type of innovation, but can be also like a cutting edge innovation or maverick innovation. It can go either in more conventional forms or more unconventional and more radical forms. But innovation, what is common like to all innovation pathways, is that innovation always starts with a need and tries to find methods for addressing this need. In terms of innovation in the field, generally speaking, our understanding of innovation has somehow evolved from a political to a technological understanding. When we speak about innovation, maybe we have nowadays we have more in our imaginary this idea of white-coated men in laboratories operating with high technology. So this more technocratic approach to the concept innovation has been deeply embedded into our imaginaries. And this reflects also the challenge of having to impose a technocratic worldview when speaking about innovation, which has important implications also on the field of crafts. For example, Black and Burrish speak about the concept of craft washing, and craft washing, for example, is a form of craftivism that may obscure either ethical, environmental, and labor issues in the chain of production. Other challenges arising from this worldview that in our use of the concept innovation implies can be also the fact of exclusion of open innovation. For example, do craftspeople in the urban context have the same opportunities to access high technology or resources for innovation, the same as, for example, craftspeople in rural areas or not? So having said this, let's turn a little bit more to the concept of innovation in crafts, within crafts. And innovation within crafts is not new. Why is it not new? It's because of mainly of the character and nature of craft practices, creative craft practices. First, because the role of the craftsperson is that to strive to improve their work in order to achieve perfection in their creation, or to invent other works yet to be realized, which is the core condition for innovation. Furthermore, the mission or the job that the craftspeople perform fits very well with the generic approach of the concept of innovation, because the mission of the craftspeople person is to identify and cover a need through new pathways, so either radical innovation or find new applications for existing technologies, techniques, or materials, conventional. So yeah, this is, let's say that innovation is deeply ingrained into the topic of creative crafts. But there are different ways to do innovation, and it applies also to innovation in crafts. And one way is to perform innovation in crafts, which means through the evolution of techniques, discovery of new materials, the application of new tools. And here I have put an example of Leonie Burkhardt. She's practically a PhD student in Sweden, and she practically is a weaver. Here we can see her experiments with 3D woven shapes. So she has modified the loom in order to create 3D shapes of textiles and not only flat 2D shapes. So this is a clear evolution of technique and an example of innovation in crafts. Innovation through crafts, on the other hand, is when crafts catalyze breakthroughs in other fields. And I've given here an example of the project Mending and Anatomy, which is a project that was performed in collaboration, like artisan and artist in collaboration with the Department of Anatomy at King's College, where practically anatomy students were and staff were invited to bring damaged clothes to be repaired in the anatomy room. While they were doing the repairing of the clothes and the textile objects that they brought, this rose conversations about topics of generosity of the donors who give their bodies, for example, to the anatomy lab, so that it's been studied. About the topics of time, about the topics of care for things, being gentle in the job of an anatomist, and so on. So these are the two specific cases that that refer to doing innovation in crafts and through crafts. And when we speak about forms of innovation in crafts, we can also have more specific groups. For example, we can speak about soft forms of innovation and hard forms of innovation. Soft forms of hard forms of innovation, I will start with these, with Createch and maker-driven innovation. So Createch, for example, is when businesses that operate at the intersection, businesses operate at the intersection of new technologies and cultural industries. And the example that I've given here is practically this French center CERFAV. And what they are doing, they are experimenting with new technologies like motion capture and VR to capture the gestures of artisans and to create databases and store them, but also for other more imaginative uses. So they use technology in a creative way. So this is the first form of, let's say, hard form of innovation. The second one is more maker-driven. Maybe you've all heard about the maker movement. Maker is practically an innovative person who is prototyping local solutions and share the knowledge in the community. So an example that I have here is practically the educational program of the Fabric Academy, Textile and Technology Academy, where they experiment among other with digital open source couture, for example. To turn then to more softer forms of innovation in the crafts world is social innovation. And social innovations are practically defined as new ideas that satisfy social needs in a more effective way than existing alternatives. But at the same time, they create also new relationships and collaborations. And here I have brought an example from University of Arts London of the project Decolonizing Fashion and Textiles, designed for cultural sustainability with refugees, in which researchers and artists work together with refugee communities in London area and used techniques from textile making, embroidery, sewing, and so on to speak about their refugee past. So if we come to the topic of responsible innovation, which is also a soft form of innovation, what can we say about it? First, we can say that responsible innovation means taking care of the future through collective stewardship of science and innovation in the present. But we can also say that responsible innovation is a form of amplification of possibilities to meet more obligations and to honor more duties to fellow human beings, the environment, the planet, and so on. So what responsible innovation does compared to other forms of innovation is like to create this dialogue between the present and the future. So while in other forms of innovation, the end result is something that belongs to the future, in responsible innovation, this aspect of trying to think how the result impacts on different aspects of our life, like the environment, future generations, and so on, becomes much more present. And to give you an example, I've put here, first of all, to mention that this concept of responsible innovation is also called poiesis intensive innovation, and it was used first by Piero Bassetti, Italian researcher. And poiesis means this combination of ethics and aesthetics through production. And a very good example is the work of designer Fernando Lapos. And you can see here that he started to create design objects like lamps and so on, to craft them from the leaves of corn, local Mexican corn, but not any type of corn, the forms of corn that are local and almost forgotten and endangered. So what he does is he brings back the local memory into his craft objects like lamps and other kind of objects. But yeah, thinking about responsible innovations, I wanted just to give you an example of how we can also think about pathways that are driven by research to create different forms of innovation. So we have the soft forms of innovations where responsible innovation fits in. We have the hard forms of innovation, but what about hybrid forms of innovation? So what about forms of innovation that mix this, like let's say, technological drive with soft forms like responsible innovation? And to speak about this, I'm using the case study of my Marie Curie project, whose aim is practically to find methods for mapping and communicating the knowledge about sustainability held by textile artisans. Practically what its end mean is to practically shift the perception we have about sustainability in textile and fashion, which we know is quite problematic because we cannot currently overpass the environmental challenges that the fashion industry involves. So to do this, I brought here a little bit some details about my research methodology as a pathway to this sort of mixed forms, hybrid forms of innovation. In my project, I mix experimental fieldwork with data visualization. So in the experimental fieldwork, I work with at least 12 textile artisans, and I go into their workshops and I interview them, I conduct observations, but I also do audiovisual recordings with the aim of mapping metaphoric gestures connected to the ideas of sustainability, to not only how they think about the sustainability aspects, but how their gestures reflect aspects of sustainability. And the second part of my project is how I use data visualization to look at the data that I collect through experimental fieldwork. So in the second phase, I'm exploring the creative potential of parametric software from architecture to generate shapes from the metaphoric gestures that I look at and analyze in my experimental work. So what is the example here of this hybrid form? Is first that it combines experimental field work, which is a form of which is representative for the topic of responsible innovation, because what I'm trying to do is to map the tacit knowledge about sustainability embedded in gestures with harder forms of innovation, which is creative, for example, where I experiment with the creative use of technology to generate innovative ways to exhibit textile objects. Of course, I'm only at the beginning of my project, but this is just an example to show how methodological pathways, research pathways can lead to innovation in crafts. There are, of course, many questions still open, like what kind of futures do such hybrid forms of innovation envisage and so on. But yeah, this it's too early for me to explore. Just to close, as a conclusion, I think it was very difficult for me to formulate the conclusions. So I try to formulate them as a sort of questions that have somehow counter questions, let's say, and are related to the topic of innovation in crafts and responsible innovation. For example, one aspect that is quite pressing that I often think about when I do research, when I do also my practice, is the fact if crafts are sometimes not synonymous with innovation in the end. If we should say that, okay, there are specific crafts that do not involve innovation or not, but on the other hand, I also think, okay, let's stop and see if our understanding of the concept of innovation is not broad enough to reflect the fact that even those crafts that we don't feel that are synonymous with innovation are innovative, actually. The second question is related to this aspect of responsible innovation, and if responsible innovation is sufficient to ensure the resilience of the craft sector. On the other hand, I ask myself if we are not also liable also to create a suitable condition and context under which innovation can flourish, and not only just put out innovation as a concept there and like as a sort of recipe that needs to be followed. So how can we create the conditions in the way we consume, in the way we consider the regenerative culture instead of a consumerist culture, how we do degrowth instead of continue to grow exaggeratedly in the capitalist culture. And the third aspect that I very often think about is like, are artisans actually wary of adopting innovative tools and methods? Because oftentimes when confronted with technologies like 3D printers and other like motion capture and other very advanced technologies, like are these something that artisans and craftspeople like sort of are afraid of or not? And on the other hand, I also think like, is it the case that we should provide also better access to innovative tools, but not irrespective of the context, but in a way that this access is also compatible with the habits, with the resources and the practices of artisans? So yeah, these are the questions that arose for me throughout the process of building this presentation for you. And I realized that the time is quite short for such a broad topic, but I hope to have given you some examples that can illuminate a little bit more about research approach to responsible innovation and my own interpretation of research innovation. Please don't hesitate to write me or to check out through the QR code further details about my project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruxandra. Much appreciated. That was really insightful and interesting, and I feel that it really opened us up to so many new concepts and methodologies surrounding this topic. It's particularly important for those of us who are working in the areas of innovation, of craftsmanship, and the research that surrounds this. For example, under these Horizon projects that we've been talking about. So I really think you clearly explained how craft can shape and generate innovation in a vast range of ways. So thank you for providing this fascinating foundation to the topic.
Thank you, Rachel.
Much appreciated, and thank you for joining us. Ruxandra unfortunately won't be around at the end for the Q&A, but feel free to still add questions to the chat and we can always pass this on to her. So thank you, Ruxandra.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
So let's move now from a research and methodological perspective towards a perspective of how community and networks and engagement can also shape innovation. So our next speaker is Ivana Borovnjak. Ivana is a designer. She's based in Zagreb, and she's working independently and as a founder and member of Oaza Art and Design Collective. She graduated in conceptual design from the Design Academy Eindhoven in 2007. And since then, she's been actively contributing to the independent cultural scene through projects of various sizes and impacts. Oaza came up with the original idea for the Made In project on the basis of a local crafts research project called Old School Ilicha. And now about 10 years later, Made In is a multi-award winning platform for collaboration and knowledge exchange between traditional craftspeople and contemporary designers and experts in the field of culture and science. Made In also has received multiple awards, including the European Heritage Award and the Europa Nostra Award in 2023. So Ivana, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I see you sharing your screen already, so the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to the World Crafts Council for this invitation. I would just kindly ask you to tell me if this full screen mode is working and if the first and the second slide are showing. Is that okay?
We see the first slide. We still see the surroundings of your PDF, but this is okay.
Maybe you are not seeing the next slides, right?
No, only the first one. Now we see the second one.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it okay like this?
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's visible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ivana.
Well, thank you, Rachel, again for introducing me. I'm here on behalf of the Made In Platform project and also as a member of Oaza Design Collective from Zagreb, which initiated the platform, as Rachel already mentioned. And today I will talk about the development of this year-long project, which encompasses production within the realms of design and crafts, collaboration and networking, community engagement, and innovative communication approaches are central themes of this initiative. Just to briefly give you a context, I will introduce Oaza, that was founded in 2013 and as a design studio at first, and now it operates as also an art organization comprising 6 designers. We work within the realm of the independent cultural sector, interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary, on self-initiated and commissioned projects ranging from design research, curating, organization of the project in the domain of visual communications, digital media products and spaces. And we are also active in the fields of formal and informal design education. We also initiated an independent publishing house in 2017, ranging from artist books to illustrated books, now with almost 40 books. We organize workshops, events, exhibitions, lectures, and some of them also in our own studio space, which is located in Ilica Street in Zagreb. And I'm showcasing this building because this is actually where the project started back in, Project Made In started back in 2012 as Project Ilica. And here on this map, you can see, maybe not, but I would assume that you can see that it's really a long street in Zagreb and has undergone a significant transformation over the past 30 years due to local political shifts and global changes in production. And consequently, many old craft workshops and specialized stores have closed down, altering the street's landscape. And now this street is experiencing rapid gentrification 10 years after we've started this project. So this is the street, and here you can see some of the photos of Ilica from the 50s onward, which show how the street looked in its full glory. And when we started actually this project, that here you can see the decay. And being located in this street with our studio, we were witnessing the loss and closure of many street-facing stores. And we started documenting this disappearance of local production and local workshops. But we were also interested in its potentials, hidden potentials in the remaining craftspeople, their hidden knowledge and intellectual capital, material resources, production networks, and distribution channels. So we also started documenting them through interviews and photography. And here you can see also faces behind those shops and some quotes from the conversations that we had with them. This research actually was then gathered in something that we called Registry of Knowledge Holders, which is a catalog of skills and qualifications and products together with this book that I will show in the few next slides. So this is the book that we have published, and we also organized a lot of networking events, such as open days, workshops, lectures, events, exhibitions, shaping something that we called old school Ilica educational model that encourages knowledge exchange among craftspeople, designers, and local residents. Additionally, we exhibited during BO50 in Slovenia as part of the nanotourism concept organized by the Museum of Architecture and Design, who later became our main partner and now coordinator of the whole platform. Most of our activities and exhibitions were local, though, primarily held on the street. And these actions ultimately led to co-creation, resulting in products fully realized within Ilica street, such as this magazine that was printed in the street, or this collection of jewelry made in collaboration with artisans, pop-up store with a newly curated collection of shoes. We even use this signage from Ilica Street to manufacture a new typeface with Manao Quelek, a designer who helped us. And finally, we gathered this into a model for self-sustainable development of local community. And this methodology provided a framework for the bigger project, which is called Made in Platform, which for us meant an organic continuation of these previously described activities. This Made in the title of the project alludes to contemporary anonymous production. It underscores design's foundation in craftsmanship, prompting critical inquiries into production sources, methods, individuals, technology, and other contemporary making aspects. And when the project started in 2018, we gathered different perspectives. Oaza's position of field researcher was intertwined with one of the museums as keepers of knowledge. Cooperation and association of craftsmen and traders, and independent cultural organizations coming from Croatia, Slovenia, Serbia, and Austria. And the Made in platform emerged actually out of this heightened awareness of the crucial role that crafts have in creating and sustaining local identity, with a unique role that they play in the transition to sustainable, innovative, circular production models and slower, more responsible consumption. During this 2-year process, so the project started in 2018, and this first cycle of it ended in 2 years. But as shown in this diagram, we went through several stages, also based on the previously described project. And firstly, actually, the digital and the physical archive was formed on the basis of thorough research. And this phase was formed around the topic of the preservation of knowledge. Here you can see just the fragments of this archive, which is still on our accessible on our archived website. And it features 40 different craftspeople from those 4 countries. Again, through interviews and photographs, they were selected based on their expertise, their endangered status, their representativeness for the region, and their geographical location. And this archive actually served as a foundation for discussions with the design practitioners, emphasizing the importance of capturing the people, tools, processes, knowledge, and experiences behind the crafts. This is just a smaller selection, and based on this, we actually again organized, or in parallel to this, we organized a lot of networking events that we call dialogues, that were including conferences, seminars, through which we were trying to connect those different actors already mentioned. And this actually eventually led us to collaborations between craftspeople and designers in formats of residencies and workshops, and eventually to the formulation of 8 specific narratives that were formed by each country separately, addressing issues specific to their own local production context. And these topics range from preserving knowledge through means of new technologies, questioning sourcing processes, processing and exploitation of materials, building communities and social networks within the city, learning practical skills from craftspeople, and building stronger relationships between craftspeople and designers, reinterpreting and implementing tradition in contemporary design practice. And unfortunately, we don't have so much time to showcase all the projects, but I've selected the 2 that I found extremely interesting. And the first one was the residency in Croatia, which was conducted by the designers, Belgian design studio Unfold, together with the photographer and videographer Alexander Humbert. And the project was called Comb Maker's Tale. The main protagonists were the last comb maker from Croatia, Antun Penezic, and Franka, a robot that was designed to learn his craft before his retirement. And through their journey, the film prompts viewers to reconsider the value of traditional crafts, the definition of handmade, and the implications of technological advancements. And another project that was really interesting came from Slovenia, together with Austrian designers Miša Traxler, conducted by Mao, that was concerned with stone as raw material that is quarried for construction and artistic purposes. And despite its integral role in daily life, stones associations with metallic mineral components often goes unnoticed. And the design project ratio explored this connection by showcasing the proportion of metal contained in specific metal ore through craftsmanship, shedding light on the complex process of transforming stone into objects while encouraging appreciation for the resources and energy involved. These narratives are presented through different formats and media. So I only showed 2 projects, but there were many others in form of films, objects, scents, experiences, and research. And the questions and topics were gathered and curated in this traveling exhibition that traveled around the 4 countries involved. And were also gathered in a book, which is a craftsmanship artifact on its own. Finally, this leads us to present tense, and we are currently conducting the second cycle of this project that will last until 2025. And the Made-in platform now connects 10 partners from 6 different countries: OAZA from Croatia, Museum of Architecture and Design from Slovenia, Museum of Arts and Crafts and Drugo More, also from Croatia, Nova Iskra organization from Serbia, Center ROG from Slovenia, University of Applied Sciences Zwickau, State Art Collections Dresden, Museum of Decorative Arts from Germany, City Museum of Zenica from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Passa ao Futuro, an organization from Portugal. The platform at its current stage maintains its core focus on research, design, and heritage, while expanding its scope to promote collaboration and exchange between traditional craftspeople and contemporary designers together or along with experts from culture and now science fields. By facilitating ongoing skills and knowledge transfer, Made-in tries to push the boundaries of craftsmanship and design, fostering evolution and innovation in both fields and highlighting the emergence of new crafts, including those related to urban biodiversity. At the core of the project, it's a knowledge atlas, which is a rich depository encompassing, again, various techniques, materials, and processes, and natural phenomena. So we expanded from the craftsmanship in this very narrow sense of its word to broader understanding. And entries range really from traditional basket weaving in Portugal to urban mycelium farming in Slovenia. And scientific insights include domestic, for example, domestic silkworm cultivation in Germany and mycology expertise in Slovenia. It has over 100 entries, and it serves as a valuable resource for exploring and research. Other activities include discourse programs in the form of conferences, seminars, and stakeholder events, and knowledge transfer and collaborations in the form of residencies, again, workshops, training courses, and the summer school. And altogether, during this year, we plan to conduct actually 17 residencies, 20 workshops, 1 summer school, and 3 training programming courses. So this is also an opportunity to invite everyone who is interested to join us. The outcomes at the intersection of crafts, design, arts, and technology will be again documented and compiled into a traveling exhibition in 2025 that will be showcased in Ljubljana and Chemnitz, the European capital of culture. And we're also planning to publish a book, and we're just in the process of setting up new website that already has quite some entries in this knowledge atlas section. And just for the end, to finish with, you're very welcome, of course, to visit the website where we also publish current and future activities. And already this weekend, there is one workshop, DIY workshop, happening in Rijeka in Croatia. And it's in the process now, the applications for basketry summer school in Portugal this summer. And yeah, this is our platform, and I would be really happy to answer any questions if needed. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ivana. And just a big congratulations on all of the work that both Oaza and the Maiden platform have done over these past years.
Thank you.
It's really an inspiring example for the crafts and design sectors, and we look forward to watching the platform develop further. As Ivana said, you can pop questions in the chat. We're running a little bit over time with our agenda, but maybe Ivana can respond directly, but we'll try also squeeze in some questions at the end. Also, you can learn more about Oaza and the Maiden platform by visiting those links that were shared in the chat earlier by Anna. So we really appreciate having you today. Thank you so much, Ivana. So now on this topic of innovation and experimentation, we move into the space of education, curatorship and training. So our next speaker is Adele Orcajada. Adele has been a materials researcher, a librarian and curator since 2014, working as a freelance consultant before becoming a partner at Material Driven, where she continues to explore materials innovation with brands and institutions. In addition, Adele has been the academic director of the Basque Biodesign Center, which is a space dedicated to biodesign, technology and sustainable materials development. Adele is a graduate of Central St. Martin's and has experience as a fashion accessories designer and a product developer. As well as this, she's taught at various fashion and design schools in Spain and the UK, and currently is a pre-doctoral researcher for Elisava University. So we're delighted to have her joining us here today. We can see your screen nicely, Adele, so thank you so much.
Great.
The floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rachel, for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to be here to share a little bit more about my journey. As you can see, it's been a little bit varied, starting as a fashion designer, then going into material consultancy, and now starting my PhD. So actually, this talk was really great for me to kind of pause and stop and think about how I collate all this kind of all these insights that I've been gathering, especially in the past few years, where I've really honed in more on education and really looked towards craft to see how it inspires innovation and how we're kind of moving forward with this. So I'm aware of time, so I'm just gonna go right in and share a little bit more about this. So like I say, I kind of look towards craft to see how traditional craft has kind of taken shape. Just some images here, you know, ceramics, basketry, leatherworking. They're all crafts that we can recognize, we understand. You don't need to be a craftsman to understand more or less what these crafts are all about. And I'm kind of, through my experience in material making and biodesign, I really start thinking, how can we do this with biodesign? How can we start identifying it as a craft? So just to give you some short insight for those of you who don't know a lot about biodesign, biodesign really started, I would say the starting point was the pioneer Suzanne Lee. We can see an image here of her really kind of breaking innovative project, BioCouture, where she suddenly put on the table that you could make things with living organisms like bacterial cellulose. That's what these jackets are made out of. They might look like leather, but they're actually made out of cellulose that comes from bacteria. For those of you who don't know a lot about this, this is the kombucha drink that we've heard about. It's kind of one of the living organisms that ferments this. And so kind of putting together biodesign and craft, I really start questioning, how can we turn biodesign into a craft? How can we think of biomaterials as a craft discipline? We have a beautiful image here of Diana Sterer's work, where she is working with roots, in this case, the root of grass, to kind of work with it and co-design these beautiful kind of textile materials. And these are kind of the starting points to bring together all this information. So just want to reiterate what biodesign is. It's this idea where we're changing the way we work. We're no longer working with traditional raw materials, but our raw materials are alive. They're living factories. Like we can see here, this slide comes from Biofabricate platform. I suggest you have a look at it. It'll really explain biodesign in detail. And it's the idea of working with mycelium, which is the roots of fungi, bacteria, yeast. This would be our bacterial cellulose, those jackets I just showed you, and with algae. And from here, the way we work is completely different. It's a paradigm shift. Suddenly, we're looking at materials with new eyes. They are becoming the core of our craft. And we are having a dialogue with the material because it's alive, because it's so different. We're approaching the materiality of our craft in a different way. It's bringing strong narratives. My two colleagues who just spoke before have mentioned this idea of the narrative as well. And it's kind of a new awakening to how we understand the way we work with materials. And this image is really great. This here that you see is the bacterial cellulose in its live state. This is Silvio Tinello. He is a artist from Argentina, and he created this collection that you see here, Objetos Cultivados, when he was working at Parsons. He had a scholarship, and it's really beautiful the way he brought in the narrative of his identity from Argentina, because he was feeding this bacterial cellulose, the SCOBY. He was feeding it with the waste mate tea that is very typical in his culture to drink. And all the waste leaves he would put together and feed his living organisms. So there's this identity, there's this narrative, but also this idea of working with live materials. So this brings me to my big question right now as I'm starting my PhD, which is how do we teach biodesign and how do we learn it? How do we start transforming it into this kind of manual, kind of like Richard Sennett talks about craftsmanship. You know, he says there's 10,000 hours before you become a master of your craft. How do those 10,000 hours transfer to biodesign? Because we still don't have a master or that many references that we could really say, you know, we need to follow these rules or these skill sets in order to officially become a biodesigner. And there's still a sense in the biodesign community of a lack of like real projection that you could actually be a professional biodesigner. It's still a gray area. And so we're slowly bringing this together now. There's many people out there trying to officialize this, I guess, as a craft. And I'm going to show you some of the concepts that I'm starting to bring together based on a lot of conversations, workshops like this one that we see here, where I'm working with algae and bacterial cellulose. So one of the key features, I think, of many crafts, but I think in biodesign, it's crucial, especially at this point, is this idea of community-based learning. Because it's such a new craft and there's no manual where you can go and follow all the steps. Whatever you do learn, it's really important that you can share with others so that we're not all starting from zero constantly and somehow we start building up this knowledge, these 10,000 hours. And Materium is a wonderful platform that's out there where people could go to as a starting point to find out what other people are doing, but they could also share their own recipes. So you can there's starting to be this kind of glossary of ingredients and recipes and kind of what way these interact. This is up close. If we went inside, for example, pomegranate biomaterial, it's really important. There is, even though this is shared, the person who's done that gets the recognition, and it kind of gives you an idea of tools, processes, and the difficulty, so that it becomes kind of democratic for anyone who wants to approach biodesign at any level. They can explore this. And very close to community-based learning is, oh, sorry, just skipped a slide. I had skipped to the next slide. I want to iterate this idea of community through the Biodesign Challenge, which was very pioneering contest that started about 10 years ago, coming from the science side more than the design. And yet somehow now the design industry has really taken advantage of this community. And every year we're finding it's building up to be even stronger projects where they're bringing design and science together. And it's becoming a very strong community globally, where they're publishing books. And the summit has become a place where people can really look for these future maestros or future masters in biodesign. And what I was aiming at is this idea that's very close to community-led learning, but it's also this idea of open source. Open source is really important right now in biodesign. This idea of sharing everything you've learned so that others can just grow from what you've explored. And Fabricademy, my colleague, well, my colleague before mentioned Fabricademy. She talked about this course, which is really pioneering. It's the idea of technology, textiles, and biology coming together. But what really is ingrained in the DNA of this course is open source, where all the students share what they've learned over every year. So the students that come in one year must improve on all the knowledge that the previous students have shared. So it's not good enough to repeat what they've done. You need to improve and delve in even deeper. And this is really for the better of everyone, crafters and designers, because that way we're not losing time. We're just kind of getting better and better every year. And we can see an image here of one of the students' pages. Here it's Julia Caras, where she's giving us her share of what bioplastics can do, how she's explored it, the recipes that she's done. So it's a really great starting point to share. And the one official university level education that is starting to really get recognition is the MA, the Masters in Biodesign from Central St. Martin's at University of Arts in London. As you know, Central St. Martin's is really at the forefront of innovation always, but they've come up with this incredible Masters in Biodesign. And I think from this Masters, I would come with two conclusions, really key ones. And one of them is this idea that a new discipline is being interdisciplinary. So if you've come to this Masters as a fashion designer, it's important that you forget about all these rules that make you a fashion designer, but you open up to understand that you're going to be incorporating a whole bunch of other tools and skills from other disciplines that are necessary to become a biodesigner. And the other idea is that you need to start looking at biology as a creative tool. We don't need to become biologists or chemists or scientists, but we're going to use our ingenuity when we look at this discipline to incorporate it as a creative tool. We're going to be asking questions, really pushing the boundaries of biology that maybe a scientist in their lab would never contemplate. So for example, Carol Collette, one of the directors of the Masters, she came up with this idea of creating like a lace using mycelium and using the protocols to grow the mycelium, and yet looking at the aesthetics that a designer in fashion would be looking at. How can we make it attractive? How can we make this delicate and unique? Or this idea of incorporating agriculture and fashion here, where she's proposing that while we grow fruit and veg, at the same time, we're cultivating the textiles of the future, if you look here at the roots. So really incorporating all kinds of disciplines and sectors and looking at biology with new eyes. And key, of course, for, when we're looking at biology creatively, especially, is this idea of experimenting, but being able to deal with surprises and failure in new ways so that we could really turn them into a new craft. And this is an example that Carol Collette shared in a talk I went to, and I love this example. She did this experiment in her lab, and she put this away, and then months later opened it up, and these beautiful roses had come out of the mycelium that she had put to grow. And she couldn't understand how it happened or hasn't been able to replicate it since. And I love this story because it's really illustrative of the surprises that come out of the experimentation between science and craft, and the way that a designer can really find beautiful ways of bringing it into their craft. Another key issue or key component that I find is this idea of independent journeys. There is a community, but a lot of this experimentation right now is very independent. People are just exploring on their own, coming up with ideas, reading on blogs, and slowly now we're starting to bring this together and to give it that shape of community that is so important, so we can start creating this kind of master book of becoming a biodesigner. And this is an example of a project in Latin America. It's in Argentina, I believe, Sistemas Materiales, and they've started a call out to map out all the biomaterial projects in Latin America so that they can come together and share their experiences under one only kind of publication. Documentation is another issue that that biodesigners need to learn in order to advance in their research. It is very important to be able to document these experiments because of the unexpected and the failures that turn into successes. We need to learn from science how to document in a very rigorous way so that we can go back and repeat and learn and share what we've been able to achieve. So this documentation becomes kind of the manual for future generations to learn from. And so this is an example in IAC in Barcelona, how they document what they document, the timing, the temperature, the way that they create these kind of these samples that are all in the same size, so that we can really compare and illustrate. And this is really important for us to really find a way to turn this into a lesson for future generations. The other thing that's important that I've learned over the past years teaching biodesign is that we're going to have to develop new tools. Because it's new, because we're being interdisciplinary and we're mixing biology with craft and design, many times we don't have the tools that we need. Many of the things that are already existing don't serve the purpose that we want to do. So we need to start tailoring new tools for what we need. This example is from the Shellworks, a company that is creating bioplastics from chitosan that comes from shellfish. And they found that it was really hard to extract the chitin from the shellfish in the way that they needed it so that they can then create final pieces. And they created these 5 machines, and they even named them the Shelly, the Sheeky, the Vacky, the Dippy, and the Drippy. And I love the creativity behind the names, because you can tell that they enjoyed and had fun making these. And these tools brought together a lot of disciplines from engineering, from technology, and craftsmanship to understand how they could make this work. And they were very successful. In fact, they've become a business since their final project in the Masters, and they've been able to push this craft further. And of course, we have to reimagine traditional crafts to incorporate biodesign, because we don't want to just separate from crafts. We want to engage and work with it and innovate as these traditional crafts as well, but just giving them a new feel and a new application, perhaps. Ruta Biomaterials is a designer based in Edinburgh, and she's looking back to traditional lace making to reinterpret that through bioplastics. What is really lovely about this is that not only is she reinterpreting lace in a new kind of context, but she's also giving bioplastics a new look and feel, or potential looks and feel, so that they're not just plastic looking. So this way, we're kind of being able to create a material that can be applied to fashion, to craft, to all kinds of disciplines, because it's got a really nice, delicate look and feel. And I love the way she came up with the idea. She's worked with technology to create these beautiful molds that have like 2 levels. And she combined what she had learned from bioplastic making into different stages, so that she would pour the bioplastic in different levels with different colors so that they would all come together to create this lace-like material that has a kind of an embossing in it. Or even this project that we created at the Basque Biodesign Center, where we look towards quilt making and this idea of community coming together, and what we knew about bacterial cellulose, that we could grow it to shape, that we could join it without sewing, that we could print on it, that we could dye it with waste fruits. And together with all of those things, we came together as a team and we built this quilt by joining these pieces that we had grown in molds of the shape of the squares. So we had no waste. And then we joined it together with water as a team coming together, putting it to look like a traditional craft. And yet when you come close, it really is a different texture, a different exploration, a different sensorial journey with it. And then all the waste pieces that we had, because they didn't come out as we liked, we came and made that beautiful kind of edge to it. And we are starting to see how this is reaching the market. And this is so important to stress, because I want future designers to understand that there is a market, there is a space for them to grow towards and to really transform industry for it to be more ethical, more sustainable, and regenerative. And we have this project by Paula Ulaguri, who's a Spanish biodesigner who created this capsule collection for Loewe, where she's embedded seeds into the fabric so that as the wearer wears the pieces, the grass is growing and it creates like a fur-like material. So it's really amazing as well that not only is it alive, it's this idea of creating fur, but through something much more ethical. And finally, I want to look also at this idea of the DIY and the GIY, so do it yourself and grow it yourself, circling back to this idea of community, but also this idea of almost like a cookbook, that it's something that you can have at home, that you can explore with ingredients that you've got at, in everyday use practically, or that even mycelium, which could be complicated, there is a certain level of complexity to work with living materials, and yet Ecovative has created this kit where they can almost 100% guarantee that your first experiments can be successful. And this is important so you can overcome the obstacle of thinking that it's really hard, that you're a designer, you're not a scientist, and I don't know how to do this. It kind of breaks the ice and it allows you to get your hands into this biomaterial and get certain success that opens the door to this paradigm shift for you to take the experimentation further. And these cookbooks by Fabricademy, they're open source, really open to anyone who has even the smallest curiosity to just take biodesign into their homes and explore further. And this is because biolabs have also broken the molds of what they expected to be, these kind of really hard to get into, very sterile and difficult to access spaces. And Gen Space in New York was one of the first community labs where it became open to the public. Anyone could come in, obviously asking for an appointment, but you could come in and get your hands dirty. You could really look at or explore what a biolab was all about. And I like it, this image here as well with Southern Sweden Design Days, where you can also see that suddenly a lab becomes a little bit of a kitchen. And this is what these biodesign labs start looking like. There's a bit of science, there's a bit of cooking, there's a bit of design, and suddenly it becomes a really exciting space for creativity. And even though you need to learn about some scientific protocol, there is a lot of space for exploring, experimenting, failure, and surprises. And I really like these articles that come up about cookbooks. We're making biomaterials at home. So we're really breaking the rules of what labs are all about and what biodesign, what this idea of biodesign being super scientific. And this is really illustrated by this idea that happened in lockdown, where Material Futures biodesigners from Central St. Martin's, they did a whole story about how they were able to transfer the biolabs from the university to their homes, and they were able to continue the experimentation and finally graduate because they were able to create the tools they needed with things that they had at home, build this lab, and download open source recipes and sharing community. So all of these ingredients came together for them to really be able to graduate as biodesigners and start creating this manual for the future generation of biodesigners that are coming. And I like to finish all my presentations with all my students. And I think this is the guiding kind of quote idea, the idea that everything you make returns to earth as food or poison. And this is what pushes them forward to really innovate, create those tools, find the way to make this idea that they have in their head possible through the use of living organisms and the ideas that come from traditional craft. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the talk and that all of these ideas have come together to kind of illustrate what a biodesigner is and how we can shape the biodesigners that are to come. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Adele. So many important considerations and examples. Thank you for sharing. You really demonstrated how the potential of material innovation and how learnings from the natural world can offer so many new possibilities and ways of experimenting. I also really liked your link to considering the training and education side in the context of such rapidly evolving innovation spaces. So we really appreciate your participation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. So what Adele was talking about links very nicely with our next and final speaker. So please stay with us, don't run away. We have the innovative artist and maker, Kim Cordes. Kim's work is situated in an interplay of textile design, material research, and photography. While completing his economic studies in Leipzig in 2018, he founded a sustainable fashion label and a social club. Within his studies in textile design, Kim focuses on eco-social material research. His awarded bachelor's thesis, Refib, Recycling Fibroin, as textile finishing, combines designed research with industrial feasibility. And in his artistic work, he's questioning multi-sensual experiences through textiles in the interface of haptic virtuality. So a lot of very exciting and new terms that I'm sure we're going to hear about. So thank you for being with us today, Kim. I see you sharing your slides. They look good. So you can go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you a lot for this warm introduction and having me here. And yeah, I can completely connect to Adele right now. I worked with and I will show you my kind of working within my bachelor thesis, Refib, which is shown here. And I will give you a little foresight of my actual master thesis research. And yeah, I can quickly skip this introduction about me. We have seen that before. And I started my journey into the biolab in 2021 within a biolab residency at our university, where the aim was to work with electrospinning, a technique to make nano textiles. And I decided in there to work with silks, and I was inspired by spider silks. And for electrospinning and a lot of medical applications, the silk cocoons, as you can see on the left side, they're going to get dissolved, and afterwards you can electrospin them, and you can do a lot of applications out of that. But for my thesis, at the end, it was interesting to question, okay, if it's possible to dissolve the silk cocoon, why isn't it also possible to dissolve silk fabrics, silk residues? And so that was the starting point of my bachelor thesis, where I investigated from the point of view when the silk was dissolved. So there is medical, cosmetic, and textile products I made from dissolved silk. Why not also from proceed silk fabric? That was the thesis I wanted to investigate and to answer. And after a lot of readings of papers, I found out that no additional anchors are required for finishing wool with silk fibrines, and they wrote in that papers, it's as well haptic improvements in the wool quality. So the aim was to investigate how domestic wool, because domestic wool in Germany is very scratchy. It's not a product, it's more or less a waste. And how can it be finished with these recycled silk fibrines? And what does this might look like? And to work with that question as a textile designer and as an economist in the biolab, it's for sure at the beginning it's necessary to find a lot of knowledge. And as you can see on that picture, the dissolvent I use to dissolve the silk is only dissolving the silk, and this fabric shows as well it's made out of cellulose and out of silk, so the dissolvent only dissolves the silk. And yeah, to give a bit confusion into all of that, I was actually confused at some point, and I needed to organize myself, and I needed to get a view on what I've done and what I'm going to do next. And on the y-axis, on the top side, you can see all this theoretical basis, which means reading papers, which means doing a lot of organization, telephoning to companies and asking questions I'm not firm with as a designer in these science surroundings. So it was a big part in all of that to achieve language. And for me, the design, it's an approach where I build bridges between different disciplines, and yeah, that's what I've done there. On the bottom part, you can see all this practical approaches, and yeah, that all took around half a year to finish all of that. And in my master thesis right now, I founded a methodology which displays my work pretty well. It comes from Rebo, Goldsworthy and Collett from London as well. And yeah, they made this material-driven textile design method to work with the biomaterial with material scientists as designers. And they put the raw material inside, and then they explore it, they translate it, activate, and so on to get materials and new approaches for a circular economy. And I would add to that methodology, I would add this big theoretical part. I'm always at first explore and translate it in a theoretical way, and then I activate it in a practical way. So as we have heard before by Adele, I'm very thankful to you that you mentioned it before. It's very important to document every single step of what you're doing in a biolab, or as well in a textile workshop. It's the same. So I made my own protocol sheet. I made my own hang tags and stickers, and for sure you have to do all the time pictures for document. You don't know what you need afterwards. So this is the overview of the outcome of the process. On the top side, you see different dissolvings of the silk and the dialysis, which is necessary as well. And as I maybe mentioned before, I decided one dissolvent which is non-toxic, which I can use at home as well. And when I got this refib, I tried on the left side, you see this tree, Flottenveredelung, which means it's dyes in water, in water boxes. And on the right side, you see coatings. And I can give some pictures to that. Yeah, the refib, we have seen that before. And this is the process of the refib. I color sorted it before because I found out it's possible to use the color as well to put it on the wool fibers. And then there's this dissolving, this jar-like semi-dissolved silk. And then there's this dialysis. And yeah, the wool, it needs to be reeled, and then you have to adjust the pH value, and then you can redefine the wool with the silk. And yeah, coming to the outcome, you can see here the dyings of wool fabrics. And in that, I tried to figure out different concentrations of silk on wool, and it came out it's possible to, it's good, there had been good outcomes with only 1% of silk fibrin on the weight of the wool. So yeah, here you can see it, the difference. I wanted to figure out as well, is it necessary to dye them in a warm surrounding, or is it possible to dye them in a cold surrounding? So you can see here the difference. This is the warm and this is the cold, and it's very scientific because you always do these control samples as well to be sure, okay, I've done something which I can rely on. And then there had been these coatings, and yeah, at some points this refib is going to get sticky, or some pastures, and yeah, I'm a textile designer, so I use it as well in the textile design silk print workshop, and I just tried. I'm like, okay, perfect, it's a pasty, and I go for it. And so I tried some coatings with that, and on the left side you can see very crumpy surfaces, and on the right side you see a bit of the shine of the silk. And that would be a next approach, to try these coatings on silk fabrics to get a monomaterial coating. And yeah, that might be very interesting. So, and that'd been another outcome I didn't imagine before. I wanted to show that it's industrial feasibility. To show this industrial feasibility, I worked together with a company, Fibrothelium. They're dissolving silk cocoons for medical purposes, and I sent it to them 1 kilo of old silk fabrics, and as you can see here on the left side, they dissolved the silk for me, which is very nice. And then in collaboration with the STFE, the Sächsische Textilforschungsinstitut, it's a textile research institute from Chemnitz as well, we try to redefine the wool in that. And the Fibrothelium sent it to me, the dissolved silk in a frozen way, and actually to freeze these leftover refib solutions is another way to make forms out of that. Actually, that was the last 2 days when I was working, and I had this photo shooting, so I didn't invent it more in that area, but it might be more interesting as well. But that's at the end, is that that's the outcome of the project. And I started with the material, with raw dissolved silk, and I tried a lot in half a year. And yeah, I'm very glad to continue that work as well in the Made In platform. I'm going to hold a workshop and maybe a residency in the summertime to work on that. But right now, I want to give a little outlook to my actual research, and it is called the Textile Science and Fiction, and I'm going to work there with silk again, with the synthetic spider silk, and I want to question their technical solution and their symbiotic experience, to ask why is it necessary, or why is it interesting to work with these new biomaterials. Because synthetic spider silk, it's a fermented fiber which is done by yeast or by bacteria as well, and it's combined with gene editing techniques. And so I invented a continuum, the textile science fiction continuum, which shows on the left side into optimistic approaches inside the status quo, like using existing technologies. But for example, the circular economy is one solution where we can use the economy where it is right now to change it a bit. And on the right side, there's more like new ontologic ethical enlightenment following the post-human ideas. And yeah, we have in our master class, it's at first we have this theoretical part, and right now I'm going into the practical part. And this is more or less a tool to question inventions, to question materials for the textile design, and please for other disciplines as well. So I applied this continuum on this synthetic spider silk. And on the one hand, I would say this symbiotic point of view, I found it in this work of Modern Synthesis. They made this shoe out of bacterial cellulose, and for me it stands for working with the material to invent new ways of production as well, with the material and with machines. The machine is stretching the yarns, and the bacterial cellulose can grow between these setted yarns. And so the synthetic spider silk is at the beginning is a powder, and it could be proceed as well into forms where we need it to be, and to not bring it into a fiber and then work with that fiber in the common way. But on the other hand of the continuum, for example, the Moon Parker of Spiber and the North Face, and they collaborated last year again and published the first fashion collection, which is already purchasable to buy these synthetic spider silk fibers. And this product stays for me as an idea where we can at some point substitute polyester with biopolymers. And the prices are pretty high right now, but hopefully they will rise at some day. And yeah, this picture from Bold Thread gives you a little insight into how this material is produced. It's a new kind of craft where a lot of more steel and glass machines are working with human hands. Yeah, thank you for your attention, and having me here.
Thank you, Kim. You can see Kim's contact details there and Instagram, etc. But yes, you're doing fascinating work, and we really look forward to seeing how you'll continue to develop and innovate in this exciting space. I also really feel, looking at all of the speakers that we've had today, like your practice is the kind of cherry on top of all of these topics that have been discussed. Because as an artist, we can really see how these concepts are being put into practice and how you've used experimentation. So congratulations on everything that you're doing, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So as you can see, we've run over time, but thank you to our audience for sticking with us. We could, of course, listen to all of these speakers for hours, but for today, this will be bringing our program to a close. We won't have time for questions, but you can always pop them in the chat or connect with our speakers today, and let's try and continue the conversation. Again, our gratitude and thanks to all of our speakers, Nicky, Ruxandra, Ivana, Adele, and Kim. You're all doing really great and inspiring work, and we thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us today. It's so important for the network and for other craftspeople to really see what's happening out there. Thank you also to our audience. We had nearly 100 people popping in and out today, so it's been wonderful to see you all joining us from across the world. We really value your involvement, and we hope to keep the conversation going. Feel free to follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with future events and webinars. But on behalf of everybody and the team, thank you for joining, and we wish you a wonderful evening.